Usually when I attend public meetings and people clap before I take the stage, I give them a bit of a warning to say, you actually don't know what I'm going to say. I usually stand up and say, thank you very much for the applause, your rates will be increased in the next couple of months, and leave the stage. And people don't really understand why the applause before that. So caution, don't applause before the speaker has actually spoken. I think also thank you to Champagne Sports for the opportunity. What a wonderful event, and I'm grateful to be here. Athol, thank you very much for the kind words. I'm not sure where you are. I saw you working, and thank you very much for the kind words. Many of you may have not heard of the Umgeni Municipality. Like many non-metros, Umgeni is not very well known. The towns of Hilton, Howick, Mpophomeni, Lidgerton, and Nottingham Road make up this area. We fondly know it as the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. It is home to some 110,000 people, of which 75% are black, 20% are white, 4% Indian, and 1% are colored, stretching 1,500 square kilometers over the rolling interior misbelt of the KwaZulu-Natal interior. 15 minutes from the capital, Pietermaritzburg, and 25 minutes access to direct flights to Johannesburg. So you don't have to drive here in, 2.5 hours to get here. You can just fly into Orabe Airport. During the 1840s, travelers moved north from Pietermaritzburg and got to the Umgeni River, where they established a settlement just north of where current-day Howick is. In 1850, a proclamation came out in the Government Gazette, offering for sale 36 village allotments along the Umgeni River. So marked the beginning of the town known as Howick. In choosing a name for the town, government officials decided to name it after the Secretary of State of the Colonies in London, so a very colonial history. They derived the name from his ancestral home of Howick, because he was doubly named Lord Howick. The isiZulu name for the area is KwaNoqaza, the place of the tall one, named after the 95-meter Howick Falls. The municipality is bisected by the N3 and is home to some of South Africa's most prominent private schools. Michael House, Sanan School for Girls, Madras Al-Noor, which is the largest school for the blind, which also sits adjacent to St. John's Theological College, Sodara Agricultural University, and Clifton Preparatory, and of course, the best school in South Africa, Hilton College. I had to stick that one in there. If you choose to visit the region, and I sincerely hope that you do, you'll be met by and entertained by a variety of cultural, natural, artistic, historical, and culinary things to do. With our own wine farms and breweries, you no longer have to travel to the Western Cape to experience this. Marketing 101. The place where former President Mandela experienced his last day of freedom before being released in 1990 is also in the Umgeni municipality, where the modern and impressive Nelson Mandela capture site sits, which is the sister museum to the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg. It is also home to one of the top 10 sculptures in the world, where last week we commemorated 60 years of Nelson Mandela's capture. The 95-meter high Howick Falls, which is the only waterfall that exists in the CBD in South Africa, or just up the road in the equally impressive valley is the 105-meter Karkloof Falls, are sites that must be visited. Umgeni is the birthplace of South African aviation, where John Goodman Household pioneered South Africa's first flight, and in 1875 piloted the world's first heavier-than-air glider. He soared over what is now one of South Africa's largest remaining indigenous forests for an hour of over about 50 to 80 meters. This is well before the first flight in France or the Wright brothers as we know them. The Lions River Polo Club is the oldest private polo club in South Africa, and is also the home of the first black South African polo player. Long before Auschwitz and Dachau, the first concentration camps opened in South Africa. Howick is home to the second concentration camp that was opened in the then colony of Natal, where some 3,300 inhabitants were housed. A memorial stands in remembrance of the women and children that were murdered. Equally as sad is the history of Nogulanga Kumete, who was the first person to die in the violence between the 1980s and 1990s during the clashes between the IFP and the ANC in the Umgeni township. If that does not make you want to visit the Umgeni municipality, then perhaps knowing that 3 of KwaZulu-Natal's largest dams, Spring Grove, Albert Falls, and Midmar Dam, are in our municipality, and that we play host to some famous sports events, such as the Midmar Mile, the Carcliffe Cycling Classic, and the Mandela Marathon. Friends, I must share with you a story, a legend, but I cannot do it too loudly, because spring is approaching, and the gods are always listening. The Ikanyamba is a legendary serpent-like creature that is said to be living in the bottom of Howick Falls. In Zulu, Hlubi, and Khoisan culture, people believe that the serpent, which has an equine-like head, is most active in the summer months, and it is believed that the anger of the Ikanyamba causes the seasonal storms. Tornadoes in isiZulu and isiXhosa are also known as Ikanyamba, or snake of the sky. As one travels up the Umgeni River to the source of the river into the Drakensberg, one can see rock art paintings and stories of this legendary beast. The boring statistics: Umgeni has a budget of 540 million with 1.2 billion rands worth of assets. And we are the fastest developing town in South Africa. Despite being 32nd biggest municipality in terms of population and 31st in terms of area in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Umgeni municipality receives the second highest number of development applications after the metro. We are also home to one of the largest rubber manufacturers in the country and the source of origin of all your Woolworths organic milk. Now that I've sufficiently marketed our area, I'll now move on to why you've actually invited me here today. But Alec, I will start with a disclaimer. I'm not an expert. I am also not the spokesperson for my political party. I do not claim to know it all or have the solutions to all the problems. And I was also not brought up a politician. What I am is a patriotic South African and a citizen of KwaZulu-Natal who has a passion for progress, a willingness to accept that compromise is not weakness, and understanding that leaders and politics in general, in its current form, have largely failed us, more evidently so in our local communities. I am an active member and leader of a political party that I still believe is best placed and with the best track record to represent the rational, principle-centered of present and future South Africa, not without its problems, and certainly I don't agree with every decision. And I am a son of farmers who was given a head start in life, far beyond many people in my generation, mainly because of circumstance, hard work, and privileged access to opportunities. But today I want to speak about 3 things: politics, hope, and the public's institution. However, I would be a terrible politician if I didn't address some of the remarks made by Paul O'Sullivan last night. And you'll forgive me for changing my speech. The first thing is his belief that the ANC should win because the alternative, perceived chaos or corruption, will be worse than what we have now. There are many examples of governments or coalition governments that have been installed throughout the country. In this room, there are 2 examples of mayors who were elected through democratic processes and installed new governments that led to meaningful gains in service delivery and improved living conditions. The Western Cape Province is an example of how provinces can change hands. And in KwaZulu-Natal, municipalities have changed hands between the IFP and the ANC a number of times, and even at some stage, the NFP, who came and went. The fact that some coalitions are under pressure, and in some cases failing, is not an attack on the majority party or parties in that coalition, or the leadership of those coalitions. Rather, it is a deliberate attack on the concept and principle of coalitions, specifically based on principle and agreements. In most cases, this is for short-term gains of power, which ultimately lead to access of resources. Secondly, I vehemently reject the defense of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa when viewed through the lens of, look at the alternatives in the ANC. The first problem here is that it is a defeatist outlook and erodes the foundations of democracy. Democracy says that we lend our power to those who do well, and we take away our borrowed power from those who do not do well. Another word for this is accountability. The second problem that I have with the statement on Ramaphosa is that he is part of a collective. He has admitted on many occasions that he defends the actions of the collective. And in many cases has said they'll put the collective before the interest of the country. So if you believe that the ANC is a problem in the country, and you believe that they are the cause of the problems, then you must also accept that Mr. Ramaphosa, as part of the collective, is part of the problem. The rational thing to do would be to coalesce around what is a better and proven challenger and reject what is worse and failed. Lastly, I'm not sure if Mr. O'Sullivan's still here. No, all right. Lastly, Mr. O'Sullivan makes a compelling case why not to vote for smaller parties, pop-up parties based on personalities, those that emerge suddenly and grow rapidly through populist rhetoric, or those who are untested in government. There are a number of reasons why you should not vote for these type of parties. And as Paul's own words say, go with the tried and tested, what he used to describe Ramaphosa. Having to manage a coalition with a party that has 1 or 2 seats out of 200 or 300 is a waste of time, energy, and there are a lot of better things to be able to do. And quite frankly, it abuses the principle of democracy because it gives a tiny minority a higher proportion of power than the democratic process actually produced. The better option would be to strengthen the hand of the biggest alternative to the party in power and give that party the best hand to bring about meaningful change. Now that I've addressed Mr. O'Sullivan in his absence, South Africans have lost faith in politics. South Africans have lost faith in the political system. South Africans have lost faith in democracy, or the power of the vote, as a mechanism for accountability and change. In its simplest form, politics are the activities associated with governance, where governance are the processes and interactions through laws and policies and the use of power that we use to organize our society. In order for politics and governance to work, there has to be an agreement between those who we periodically entrust with power, so the voters, and those who are in power, the politicians. Those who are chosen to govern, administer, or more primitively rule, do so knowing that if they do well or right, that they will again be entrusted with power. And if they do wrong or bad, that power can be taken away. This is democracy and accountability. In this relationship, there are expectations from everyone, citizens and politicians alike. A social compact, usually captured in the form of a constitution. In South Africa, which is a very young democracy, this process is only starting to truly take form now. More and more people are rejecting the lies that only a liberation party can truly represent them and care for them, and that other parties will stop their grants, take away their RDP houses, or bring back apartheid. More people are seeing that you can bring change through the ballot. In Umgeni, we are trying to restore faith in politics, and in doing so, democracy. We are trying to prove that change is possible through an electoral process. After all, the alternative is deposing government through violence. By doing the basics right, by listening to the ideas and concerns of various communities, and by being open, responsive, and caring, we aim to show voters and communities that participating in the political system can bring about something better. We are out to prove to people that we will not take away your RDP house or bring back apartheid, to prove to people that paying your rates won't result in wastage or theft. We're working hard to give expression to that social compact, the Constitution, or at the very least, the parts that we are in control of or have influence over. Friends, when last were you in an optimistic state of mind? When last could you say that you felt good about your country, your town, or your government? When last were you able to identify a collective movement forward and optimism about your community? The feeling that you get when you are standing up in the Mbombela Stadium singing the national anthem before the Boks beat the All Blacks. Our aim for Umgeni is to recreate this feeling and optimism over and over again. It's called hope, and it's a powerful tool for social, political, and even economic progress. Our common culture, despite our immense diversity, can be infinite hope and an optimistic state of mind. We've lost that as a country, that dream of 1994. Of course, there will be challenges, setbacks, failures, and mistakes. To deny the inevitability of this would be foolish. This will lead, obviously, to disappointment. But as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Through our actions, our words, and our transparency, we are trying to keep hope alive in Umgeni. Umgeni Municipality does not belong to Christopher Pappas, the Democratic Alliance, or any individual or group of people. The Umgeni Municipality belongs to the people who reside and work in our area. Therefore, the actions and programs of the municipality must always reflect as best as possible the vision that the people of the area have. The municipality must be a willing partner, an enabler, a defender of the dreams, needs, ideas, plans, and vulnerabilities of the people of Umgeni. This means building an inclusive, responsive, fair, and transparent public institution that is capable and ethical. Our new motto for this administration is making progress together. Every action or reaction must lead to social and economic progress. This means doing local government unusual, pioneering new ways of thinking and delivering, and pushing the boundaries. As I said to the Auditor General when she paid us a surprise visit the other day, my goal is not to get a clean audit. My goal is to deliver services and improve people's lives. Bearing in mind that we are not a metro with billions of rands and that we are largely a rural municipality, I'd like to share a couple of our successes over the last 9 months. Today in Council, which is currently taking place in my absence, we will settle one of the last of 3 loans of 10 million rand. This is the second loan we are paying off since December and will save ratepayers 450,000 rand in interest this year. We have increased the basket of services and the number of people that we are supporting who fall in poor and vulnerable households, from 133 when taking government to over 3,050 today. This also includes increasing the threshold that people can access, so from 3,500 rand being the threshold to 5,000 rand. Free basic electricity has been increased from 50 units to 150 units. And now, for the first time, poor families will receive free black bags, so they no longer have to choose between 70 rand black bags at Pick and Pay versus living in a clean environment and having to put food on the table. All residents over 60 now qualify for a rates rebate. And if you earn 13,500 or less, you qualify for a higher rebate. So it's a great place to retire. We have completed the municipal property valuation process in record time, and in doing so, decreased rate randages by 25%, introduced a COVID relief rebate, and a July riots rebate, all while prices increased throughout South Africa. For the first time, the municipality entered the new financial year with money in the bank, and we were able to pay Eskom 1 month in advance. We have recovered 25 million rand in outstanding debt, and by doing so, we have been able to increase our expenditure on maintenance from 2.5% of our budget to 6%, and we aim for the 8% Treasury recommended amount in future. We've limited political interference in hiring by employing a temporary employees randomization selection process, much to the dismay of the comrades. We have developed and adopted a number of policies We have re-established a number of committees, including a municipal financial disciplinary board, and we have started to discipline councillors for misconduct. We have 24 million rands worth of equipment on its way, including 4 refuse compactors, an excavator, tip trucks, TLBs, rollers, and a number of other pieces of equipment. The SPCA benefits 250,000 rand a year from improved financial stability, something that has not happened for many, many years. There's a whole list here, but I think my time is running out there, so I'm not going to go through them. You can read our budget. But in concluding, Alec, I want to encourage people to do 3 things. And forgive me if this steps on your toes or is not to your liking. But I believe that I have an obligation as a young politician in South Africa to speak my mind in a constructive way. Firstly, get involved. Stop saying somebody must do something about it, and be the person who does something about it. Join a political party or donate to a political party. Join your local CPF structures or your civic organizations. Democracy by nature is participatory, so participate. Get informed. Stop taking what you read in freebie online clickbait articles as fact. Stop forming your worldview around ENCA's daily roundup. Viral messages that usually end in "as received" are not credible information. Don't be stingy. Pay for well-researched journalistic work. Critically evaluate your role in building a better South Africa. Buying a second luxury vehicle versus improving the living conditions of your domestic worker or her children, or celebrating the extra 100 million that the company made this month on behalf of your shareholders versus assisting your employees. Notwithstanding the role of a failing government in corruption, we had a tease of the consequences of an increasing inequality and poverty with the anarchy in July 2021. Friends, thank you very much for this opportunity. Come and visit Umgeni. We are ready to be your partner. Thank you.